What is good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode brought to you by the League FFB, and more specifically, an episode of Let's Talk Dynasty. Today, we are going to be continuing our last, directional breakdown of these divisions. We are going to be talking about the West, and more specifically, the AFC West in today's video. So, Dynasty fantasy football players to watch, players whose values are going to trend up and trend down over the course of the year, breakouts, sleepers, values, busts, everything you want for fantasy football, we got you covered. Top 250 players in Superflex ADP. But with that said, it would not be an episode of Let's Talk Dynasty unless I brought my co-host into the building. So let's not waste any more time. Let's hop right into today's video and let's start talking about the AFC West. War, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. I'm ready to get started, ready to rock and roll.
Hell yeah. So as I said, we are talking AFC West. Now, for the folks at home, we are actually in person right now as they are watching this because we are there for our home draft. We have our home league draft where we're going to be doing that live this weekend. So at the time of the recording, you guys are seeing this. We are actually in Las Vegas doing a draft as we speak. So if there is a little bit of information, maybe some crazy things happen in the next couple of days between the time this is recorded and the time that you are watching this, bear with us. Take it with a grain of salt. We will do our best, but we've had an Ayuk, nuke that has been sitting on us for a while. It would just be our luck that news drops the second that we finish recording this. That would just be our luck. But at the end of the day, AFC West, that's what we're here for today.
Yeah, man, let's do it, man. AFC West, very interesting division.
All right, man. Well, let's start it off. As we have been doing this, we move from the team with the lowest projected win total to the highest projected win total. And in the AFC West, the lowest projected win total is the Denver Broncos. They have a projected win total of 5.5 wins here. You look at last season for them, obviously didn't go as planned with Sean Payton, Russell Wilson. 8-9 was the record. They missed the playoffs in 2023. Then this offseason, they move on from Russell Wilson, trade him to the Pittsburgh Steelers. They draft their next quarterback of the future, hopefully, in Bo Nix out of Oregon. They get his buddy Troy Franklin out of Oregon as well to play wide receiver. And in free agency, they signed Josh Reynolds, which I have it marked down as like major free agent and trade additions. He was the most notable free agent addition for them as Josh Reynolds, but 5.5 wins. What are we thinking about this team, and how do we feel about the 5.5 win total?
I mean, they look like a 5-win team to me, just about. I don't think I'll pick them to finish with too much less than that. 5 wins sounds about right.
It's just not that good of a football team. The defense has lost some key pieces over the last couple of years. Justin Simmons just left that defense as well. I could see this being a team where, just looking at the fantasy football options, there's not a lot that you want out of Denver. You're probably not drafting Bo Nix, for what he's going to do in 2024. He's more so a long-term play, probably similar with Troy Franklin and some of these other guys. I would say maybe the most exciting pieces for the immediate future in Denver right now, Javonte Williams and maybe Courtland Sutton. Courtland Sutton might end up being the highest scoring fantasy football asset on this team again in 2024. And I don't know how good he's going to be for fantasy football. He could actually end up being a trade candidate in the back half of the year if they are, losing a lot of games and thinking about really just flipping this roster entirely.
Yeah, I could agree. I've never been a Courtland Sutton guy, but I could definitely see a scenario where he gets traded. There are a couple teams out there right now who are trying to acquire a receiver, so he'll be right for the picking if they when they slide at the beginning of the season. Javonte Williams, him have a good history. He's one of my guys, but I don't know, man. That ship has maybe sailed. So
maybe. Look, 5.5 wins. It feels low. They won 8 last year. I'm going to say that they go over, but I'm not super confident in them going over. But as far as the ADP play or the players and the ADPs of those players to watch, you got Bo Nix as the number 1 player on this team, I guess, from the highest ADP standpoint. Coming off the board is QB 22. Then you got Javonte Williams, running back 24, Courtland Sutton, wide receiver 64, Troy Franklin, wide receiver 66, Marvin Mims, wide receiver 70. You got Jaleel McLaughlin as running back 44, Audric Estime is running back 49, and Greg Dulcich at tight tight end 23. That is the top 250 here. I think really there's one large conversation to have about the wide receivers, because as you see, all of these guys are within 10 spots of ADP of each other. So nobody is confidently drafting one of them as the guy. We can have the conversation about the wide receivers, and then I think we can maybe have the conversation about who might be RB2 in this offense behind Javonte Williams, because Audric Estime and Jaleel McLaughlin are both kind of being drafted similarly. So let's start with the wide receivers. How do you feel about this group of guys, and how would you be drafting these guys? What's the outlook for these guys?
Outlook for these guys is not good. Bo Nix is a rookie. He's going to be making rookie mistakes. He did look very good in the preseason thus far. But to go in on what you said, Troy Franklin, he's a future play. Courtland Sutton, he's a trade candidate. Marvin Mims is a future play, to be honest. Ideally, that's probably the receivers they would like to be the ones leading their receiver groups in the future. Troy Franklin, Marvin Mims. I don't have any strong feeling either way, like about the ranking of any of those wide receivers. I mean, they kind of just are where they are.
Yeah, I mean, I think if I have to pick between them, I've kind of been a vocal Troy Franklin guy. I think Troy Franklin would be the selection that I make. As of lately, I think as of lately, the news hasn't been great about Troy. He hasn't got a lot of rave reviews. Benjamin Albright he's a Denver Broncos beat reporter. He's been talking a lot about how Franklin hasn't looked fantastic. I don't know, man. We felt like the draft capital might have been a little bit too low for Franklin based on the talent. At the end of the day, he's still the bet that I'm making as the guy of this current group that I want. I guess I would say Courtland Sutton would be the other guy, and I think Courtland Sutton probably leads this team in fantasy points this year just because he has more touchdown opportunities probably than Franklin and some of these other guys. But I don't expect this to be a high-scoring offense. I don't expect this to be an offense that does a lot in 2024. And to be quite frank, I don't even think that the wide receiver one in Denver is currently on the roster. I think you might be looking at a guy in the 2025 class like Luther Burden or Teteroa McMillan, or maybe even like if they go a little bit later in the draft, an Emeka Egbuka that ends up being the guy that is the number one wide receiver in this offense long term, and Troy Franklin plays that Z wide receiver on the opposite side as the number two. I could see that being something that actually happens. Other than that, though, they're dart throws. I mean, Mims and Franklin, they're dart throws. I guess when we look at the running backs, Jaleel McLaughlin, he's the guy that I prefer as the backup. I'm not a big Estime guy. He's kind of a bruiser, downfield, dirty runner. Like he runs hard, but he's not super athletic. He's not very good in the receiving game. The draft capital between him and a guy like McLaughlin, who McLaughlin was undrafted, the difference in draft capital ain't that crazy, to be honest anyways. Being undrafted and being a day 3 guy at the running back position, it's just not that different, to be honest. So I think Javonte, there's a chance, man, that he's flying under the radar right now. I know you said that ship might have sailed, but there was a point there was a point earlier in the offseason where it looked like dark days for Javonte. But I just look at how this offense uses their running backs, man. They've always bell cowed their running back. I'm talking more specifically about Sean Payton. He uses them a lot in the receiving game. There's a chance, if this offense needs to get rolling, they lean on Javonte Williams in the run game and in the, receiving game, and maybe he's a value this year if people are willing to take the risk. And if not, if Javonte is too risky for your liking, you could go for a Jaleel McLaughlin at a cheaper price and see if you can get the same type of value. So I don't know. That's kind of how I feel about these. And Bo Nix, for me, I think Bo Nix was undervalued in the rookie draft process. Bo Nix is a guy that, is probably going to be all right. I think a guy who can follow a similar career path to, if he hits the highest ceiling that he possibly can hit, I think this is a guy who follows the Kirk Cousins, career path, the Drew Brees career path, from a fantasy perspective, give you those low end QB1s in a good offense, maybe more just a very solid QB2 for your super flex rosters. I think that's more Bo Nix, but it may not be 2024. The weapons there are just pretty bad.
Yeah. As far as Javonte Williams, I could definitely see a scenario where he's a big fantasy producer. A lot of people are sleeping on him. People don't want to trade for him. People don't want to acquire him. But the thing is, this offense just doesn't have too many ways to score. more. So, I mean, they could turn to Javonte. Health is a concern. So, I mean, I think if you have Jaleel McLaughlin, who would also be the one that I would kind of lean on too, just because, just like how we talked about the Mario Douglas last week. You've seen him do it already, so it's easier to make that decision versus a day 3 guy and then wondering if that guy is going to just come in and supplant, the guy who's already proven that he could do it in the NFL. So, I mean, I would probably lean Jaleel McLaughlin too, but if I have the opportunity to have both of those backups on my roster, why not? Because I don't think their coach, Sean Payton, I don't think he's ever shown like an affinity to pick a bell cow running back and just use that one running back. So I do think that we could see somewhat of a committee for Denver for this upcoming season, but I do think that committee starts with Javonte Williams. I also feel the same way about Bo Nix as far as he comes from that same mold of that Sean Payton quarterback like Drew Brees, dink and dunk, low-end quarterback, one numbers. Don't necessarily know if he's going to be throwing bombs all over the field, but he will follow the Sean Payton script. I think that's why Sean Payton got him. I think that's why Sean Payton likes him. You hate him. You hate Sean Payton. But, but I think Bo Nix is a Sean Payton quarterback, and I don't think that a Sean Payton quarterback necessarily checks all the boxes as far as talent, but as far as operating within the Sean Payton script, I could definitely see Bo Nix excelling in that later on in the year and going into his next season.
Yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. I think overall, we won't know what Bo Nix is probably until next year when they kind of put a little bit of a better offense around him, because right now it's definitely a work in progress.
Absolutely.
All right, well, let's move on to the next team here. We do have the Las Vegas Raiders. They are projected 6.5 wins. A lot of change, but not change at the same time. I mean, for the most part, you look at last year, 8-9 as well. Missed the playoffs. They did have the Josh McDaniels saga that ended up being a firing mid-year. You had the Jimmy Garoppolo and a lot of the other stuff that happened throughout the year. But now Gardner Minshew brought in to potentially be the starting quarterback, just competing with Aidan O'Connell. Alexander Madison brought in, and then kind of a confusing draft pick. I felt like on draft day, they draft Brock Bowers after spending a early second-round pick last year on Michael Mayer. They say it was best player available for them, and Brock Bowers was the best player available. Now, Antonio Pierce, he took over the team as the Raiders' interim head coach in Week 9. They decided to move on with him full-time. He is the full-time coach moving forward, and he is primarily a defensive guy. Has been his entire career. So he brings in former Bears offensive coordinator Luke Getsy as the team's play caller now. And so I think this team will likely try and establish the run. 6.5 wins. Luke Getsy, I got a little bit of a reaction out of you, I heard. What are we feeling?
This team might struggle to win 3 games, man. They might struggle to win 3 games. And I actually love Gardner Minshew. And I actually want Aidan O'Connell to succeed. But that Luke Getsy, man, he's a seedy bastard, I tell you. He's real seedy. He's one of those offensive coordinators that is not necessarily let's build our offense around the talents of the quarterback. It's here's my playbook. These are my plays. These are the plays we're going to run. Talent be damned or ability be damned. That's kind of how he rolls, and I don't think that's going to work. I don't know why. The Raiders not only hired the guy, they prioritized his hiring. So what does that tell you? From a talent standpoint, Davante, running back, I don't even know. Zamir White, I don't know if Zamir White can actually ball out or not. I trust Davante. I think they definitely need to be running some 2 tight end set. It's a cluster, you know what, but it brings me back to my point. They're going to struggle to win 3 games, let alone 6.5. So under.
Yeah. I mean, look, I was having a conversation. Now, keep in mind, this conversation took place before J.J. McCarthy was down and out for the year. But I was having a conversation with, my little brother Tyson, big Raiders fan. And I told him we were talking about Raiders and Vikings, and he was talking about how much better the Raiders were than the Vikings. And I was telling him, I was like, what are you looking at that I'm not looking at? Because you're the Raiders guy. So like, what am I missing about the Raiders team? Because you have a lot of confidence in them being a good team. And I even, I said, I bet before I even knew the projected win total, I said, I bet Vegas isn't even projecting them to win more than 7 games. Like, I can't even imagine that they're projected to even be second place in your division. Like, I feel like they're like a third or a fourth place team in your division. And he was like, that's just totally disrespectful. And I was like, well, one, you're a fan of the team, so I understand if you feel like if I'm not saying you're going to win the division, it's probably disrespectful to you. But at the same time, I was like, this is a team that, I like Gardner Minshew. I think he's fun. He's funny. I don't think he's fantastic at playing quarterback in the NFL level. He's a upper tier backup quarterback. That's the way that I view him. And I didn't feel like a guy like Minshew or a guy like O'Connell was going to be that much of a quarterback upgrade. And you had Davante Adams talking reckless about the QB play on Netflix Receiver. And you do what? You don't upgrade this team at all, really, this offseason. You lose Josh Jacobs, who has been the identity of this roster for the majority of the last 5 years. The defense, it's probably going to improve under Antonio Pierce. He's a defensive guy. They looked pretty good down the stretch last year defensively. Other than that, like, you got a lot of work to do on offense, and I felt very much like this was a team that needed to prioritize the quarterback position this offseason. Obviously, we had 6 rookie quarterbacks go off the board before they even picked, but from what I have heard, from my understanding, they didn't really try very hard to move up and go get a franchise guy anyways. There wasn't a lot of phone calls. There wasn't a lot of anything. It just feels like this is a team that, I've said this on a couple of episodes, and I more so say it jokingly, but this team feels like the lock for bust down my AP, perfect time, man. This feels like Shedeur Sanders is about to be a Las Vegas Raider.
I could definitely see that. Man, when you sit back and look at it, man, there's so many teams vying to be the worst team in the NFL this year. I definitely think the Raiders have their hat in the... Let's make this one thing clear, too. And I don't know if we should talk about it now or after we look at the ADP and everything, but I don't think Davante is going to finish this season as a Raider. I just don't see it. I think that you actually could be looking at Brock Bowers being the leading receiver for this team, especially with the quarterbacks they have. Those guys both seem to be, guys who probably rely on that safety blanket of the tight end. So, yeah, this team's not going to be good. Long story short.
6.5. I'm not very confident in the over. I'll take the under on this one as well. But look, man, let's talk about the ADP. You have the most valuable asset. We already knew this. It was Brock Bowers being drafted in the top 50, the tight end 4. Look, we talked about him as a generational tight end talent. The situation is funky. It's just when we were talking about Brock Bowers all off season, I could not tell you that the Las Vegas Raiders were on my bingo card. I did not think that this was the landing spot that Brock Bowers was going to get. Now, you have Davante Adams coming off the board as the next best player, wide receiver 34, Zamir White as the running back 23. Then you got a mix of a bunch of guys kind of going from that 150 to 250 range. Jacoby Myers, Michael Mayer, Gardner Minshew, Aidan O'Connell, and Dylan Luwabe. Now, at the quarterback position, you see we are drafting Minshew over O'Connell. Basically, the community has said that we think that Minshew will win this job. Do you agree with that sentiment?
No. I think Aidan O'Connell is going to win that job. And I haven't checked the reports recently because it's the Raiders. But the last I checked, Aidan O'Connell was in the driver's seat of that quarterback battle. So I don't know if that's flipped or
well,
what.
There was a report that came out yesterday, actually. And Antonio Pierce was talking about this quarterback competition. And he says he wishes somebody would have came in and took this job. He says basically nobody has taken the job at this point.
Yeah.
And he says, they're expected to name their starting quarterback this week, but he said there is no clear leader in this room. There's no clear leader after the preseason action. And based on the performances last night against the Cowboys' backup defense, you had O'Connell, 96 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Gardner Minshew, 95 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Neither of these guys have played well. And I think it's foreshadowing on the season here. In my opinion, it doesn't matter who starts week 1 because both of them will play starting games this year.
Yeah, I do. I just tend to lean towards the younger guy because you're going to get 1 or 2 outcomes. Either you're going to get a bad season, a high draft pick, or you're going to see the younger guy develop. And it's not... Gardner Minshew is a perfectly good backup quarterback. But the problem is that this team needs a starting quarterback. And both of these guys might be quality backups. So I expect...
Minshew is new age Fitzpatrick.
I feel like that's giving him too much credit.
Is it?
Yeah, Fitzpatrick could sling that thing when he needed to.
Fair.
Yeah, he was putting numbers on the board. I don't know if Minshew could get it like that, but he's an awesome dude, though.
Fair enough.
At the same time, yeah, man. I expect Aidan O'Connell to be named the quarterback, the starting quarterback, though.
When you look at the main pieces, I mean, you said that you don't expect Adams to finish the year as a Raider.
No.
I don't really expect it either. It just doesn't feel like. I mean, did you watch the receiver Netflix?
No, but you just reminded me that I needed to. It's been on my radar.
So,
I've been too focused on Hard Knocks.
Fair enough. I mean, fair enough. That makes a lot of sense. With that said, though, there was a lot of conversation. I was surprised how much of the conversation was put into the Netflix series about Davante Adams. He made it very clear, like in the documentary, that I am old and I don't have time to wait and waste on a rebuild. I am trying to win a Super Bowl. That is what, like, basically he made that very clear. And Vegas ain't doing that for you. So, you know, he wants to try and make it work. He bought into the Antonio Pierce. He bought into what he was selling. But I'll tell you what, comes October, November, and the Raiders have won 2 or 3 games, and he's not, putting up the numbers or getting the targets that he wants or the quality of targets that he wants out of a guy like Minshew or O'Connell. You're going to start hearing it again. It's going to be loud, and you might have a trade deadline candidate in Davante Adams where he's saying, look, send me back to play with my buddy Rodgers. I want to go play in New York with him and try and go win a Super Bowl with the Jets. Like, he's going to try and do something crazy.
Would that be the team? Okay, quick game. Okay, so he already said that his prerequisite for a team he want to be on is a team that could win a Super Bowl, correct? So we could eliminate a good portion of the league right now. So let's say, for instance, the Raiders go to Davante and say, okay, we're going to trade you. What team would it be? We know the Jets are on that list. But what other teams are on that list? Because I would say the Steelers, because I expect the Steelers to miss out on Ayuk. I think he's going to go back to San Francisco. So
I don't expect the Steelers to be a contender, though.
Yeah, so that's why I said we could kind of take them off the list. So I'm wondering what other teams could he go to, because that'll
Kansas
be very
City came to mind.
For fantasy football, if he goes to a winning team from the Raiders in midseason, that could potentially shift your season in fantasy.
Yeah, I mean, Kansas City came to mind, but Las Vegas isn't trading him within the division. They're not going to do that. I would think maybe, I don't know. I'm trying to think, like, could he possibly go to a team like Dallas? Would Dallas make a move like that, late in the year?
That's interesting.
Try and pair him up with CD, make a push, especially before you have to pay CD. You can pay for the 1 year of Davante or whatever. That would maybe be something that makes sense. Could he possibly go to a team like, I wanted to say the Rams, but I couldn't imagine that they would be able to afford him.
Neither can Buffalo. Buffalo will be good, but I don't think they can afford him either.
I don't know. They can't. I would say the Chargers, but they wouldn't send him within the division. They could use a receiver, but I don't know, man. There's not a lot of options. I feel like the clear cut, like obvious, is New York sending him to the Jets to play with Aaron Rodgers.
What about Atlanta?
Maybe. You think Kirk Cousins is winning a Super Bowl?
I don't think Kirk Cousins is winning the Super Bowl, but I do think the Falcons are winning that division. I think we both agree they might be running away with that division, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think that they're definitely the favorites.
And their second receiver is Darnell Mooney, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it is Mooney.
And they've already been super aggressive this offseason. So that's why I'm like, okay, maybe they can be the ones that'll try to make that move.
What about I'm looking at one more. I'm just trying to look at the last couple of divisions that we've talked about and see my notes. One more. Could he go to Baltimore? Play with the Ravens?
I mean, he could. I wouldn't love that for his fantasy value, though.
Go play wide receiver 2 opposite Amon-Ra St. Brown in Detroit.
Oh man, that would disgust me to no end. I'd be super disgusted if that happened. Do you think they could do something? And I doubt it. Like maybe move him for T. Higgins, but the Bengals are kind of stingy too when it comes to like money.
Well, they don't have a lot of cash flow.
Yeah,
I don't know. Those would be the options, but I don't know. There's not that many options now. That being said, Adams has kind of been a fade for me this offseason. The outlook doesn't look great. The age isn't, ideal. He won some people some fantasy football playoff games down the stretch last year, but the reality is most of the year he wasn't scoring fantasy points for you. I'm sorry to say the quiet thing out loud, but a lot of the time last year, almost like I want to say I did I wish I knew the data off the top of my head because I did a video on Bust not too long ago, and I talked about the data with Davante Smith. I want to say it was like 70% of the games that he played. What did I say, Davante Smith?
Yeah.
Davante Adams. I want to say it was like 70% of the games that he played last year, he didn't even finish as a wide receiver 2 or better. So he was basically a flex wide receiver or worse in 70% of the games that he played last year. And you drafted him as a top 10 guy. And you're drafting him this year as like a top, 12 guy in redraft. You're drafting him as a top 12 guy in best ball. In Dynasty, you're not paying that type of price, but also there's still people that believe he can give you that ceiling. And to me, this is the sell window for Davante. In fact, the sell window was probably right after the championship game when people were like, oh, he scored 50 points in championship week. You probably should have sold off of Davante Adams at that moment. But I'm telling you, he gives you a big week early on in the season. Get out, because people will see it and say, oh, Davante's back. He's going to get, a good year, blah, blah, blah. Reality is he might be, he might give you a good year this year, but then he'll be 33. He'll be 34 the following year. Like, time's up.
Are you taking him or Stephon Diggs?
Give me Diggs.
Same.
Especially considering the cost of both of those guys. You can get Diggs cheaper than you can get Adams.
Yeah.
So yeah, give me those guys. We spent a lot of time talking about Davante Adams. I want to talk about Zamir White and Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers, we obviously loved him in the draft process. We expect him to hopefully be one of these top 5 tight ends for the next decade. We want him to be that. Are you worried about Bowers in any way, shape, or form being in Las Vegas, or you think no matter what, the kid's going to get the run and he's going to be fine?
No, I actually think him being in this scenario with these quarterbacks, I actually think this improves his fantasy possibilities. Like I said, guys who aren't that good, love that tight end security blanket, especially like the younger guys, like a guy like O'Connell. So I expect Bowers to get a bunch of burn, expect him to get a bunch of opportunities and targets in that Raiders offense. So I don't have too many concerns about Bowers at all.
I mean, we talk about the thought about maybe Adams being on his way out, back half of the year. That would only open up more targets and more opportunities for Bowers in this offense. So I agree with you. Not really fading Bowers based on the landing spot. Obviously, we would love to see it improve a little bit, so there's some more touchdown opportunities. But the targets are going to be what make or break you in those, especially in those tight end premium formats. The last guy, Zamir White, he's kind of being bulked into this grouping of running backs like DeAndre Swift, Najee Harris, Jonathan Brooks, Raheem Mostert. Like, most people think he's going to perform along the same lines of those guys this year. I'll tell you what, I liked Zamir a lot when he was coming out, many years back, it feels like. It took a while for him to get the opportunity. I always felt like he was a good runner. He doesn't really have the pass catching upside of some of the guys like Swift and some of the guys like even Najee. I think Najee has more pass catching upside. But Antonio Pierce has shown that he wants to run the wheels off of his running back. Zamir White could see a heavy workload, but if it's a bad offense, doesn't matter.
I feel like they should have did more to address the running back position. Here's always been my logic with running back. You're backing up a guy, right? Like Alexander Madison, somebody like that, guys like that. You're backing up a guy who's a stud. If you're not able to take the job or force a timeshare, then I have no time for it. That's why I've always been low on Zamir White, because to me, Josh Jacobs, despite his performance in fantasy and things like that, Josh Jacobs was never like this game-breaking running back that like was impossible to overtake like McCaffrey or Saquon or something like that. So it's not like he wasn't gettable. So I mean, the fact that Zamir White was backing him up all this time and hasn't like at least forced a time split, it shows me that he's not all that. So yeah, I don't expect much out of him in this offense, to be honest.
Running back 22 on Keep Trade Cut, 25 years old this year. Like, he feels very much like those running backs that you hold and you get lucky because they give you 1 or 2 years as the starter and you get some production out of them. But there's no way, and our receipts episode is definitely this needs to be in consideration for what I'm about to say. There is no way in hell a guy like Zamir White has top 12 upside? It doesn't happen. He doesn't have the pass catching upside. As I've mentioned, the offense is not going to be good enough. If Zamir White finishes top 12, we can bookmark this. We can show it on the receipts episode, but I am severely confident there is no upside in a guy like Zamir. You are drafting a guy who is going to be mediocre and good enough, and you're basically drafting a Gus Edwards, as your running back too.
Yeah.
That's what Zamir White is to me. Now,
that's what he is to me too.
It is what it is. Saying that, does that make you interested at all in a guy like Dylan Lawabe, who has been getting some pretty good reviews out of Raiders camp, out of Antonio Pierce? He has a little bit more pass catching upside. Do you kind of want to throw Lawabe on the back of your bench and just see if Zamir is kind of mediocre? Maybe there's an opportunity for Lawabe.
One of our league mates for years has called me the fantasy running back guru because I'm just good at all I've ever done is look at who's the starting running back and see how vulnerable they are to having their job taken. That's why I like Marshawn Lloyd. Because I think Josh Jacobs, like I just said, I don't think he's all that. So I definitely would look at Dylan Lawabe because I don't think Zamir White was able to force a timeshare with Josh Jacobs. So why not? I'll give him that shot. Have him on my bench.
I think he's worth a dart throw. Other than that, last point, we've talked about the Raiders for so long, but last point, is Michael Mayer dead for fantasy football? Are we done with him already?
The only hope is 2 tight end sets, man. That's the only hope.
It's unfortunate, man. I really liked Mayer coming out, man. Unfortunate.
I was lucky enough to have one of my teams where I had Mayer and was able to draft Bowers. So
kind of handcuff insurance, I guess, at this point.
Yeah, or 2 tight end set or something.
Whatever. All right, man. There was one draft. I'm kicking myself right now, but there was one draft where I took Mayer over Laporta, like 4 spots over Laporta, and I was like very confident that I got Michael Mayer because I loved Michael Mayer. Not good. Oh well. Let's move on to the next team here. We do have the Los Angeles Chargers. Now, with the Chargers, they are projected 8.5 wins. You look at last season for them: 5 wins, 12 losses. Justin Herbert missed some time down the stretch as well. They missed the playoffs in 2023, obviously with just 5 wins under their belt, but a lot of change in Los Angeles. There's a ton of change. First, probably the most important change is Jim Harbaugh, brought in from the University of Michigan. He comes in and he brings in the offensive coordinator Greg Roman of the Baltimore Ravens. And we're going to be looking at a hard-nosed, run-first type of football team that wins games, doesn't score a lot of fantasy points, but establishes the run. Now, 8.5 wins, the projected win total here, this feels higher than what I had originally thought. Made me think, am I missing something? Is this team going to be better than I think in 2024? You have new incoming players of Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins, Hayden Hurst, basically Greg Roman bringing all the Ravens over. And then you have Ladd McConkey in the NFL draft. How are you feeling about this Chargers team, and how do you feel about the outlook of these guys for fantasy for the most part?
I think that they could go over. I think there's been a lot made about a bunch of stuff that, is not really going to get to play out until during the season. Herbert, how's he going to play? How's the running back room going to look? What are these wide receivers going to do? How are these wide receivers going to look? But I think I could trust, honestly, I'm one of the guys, I could trust Jim Harbaugh, man. As far as their win total, I take the over because they got good coaching and I feel like they have a stud at quarterback. And I think that's always the key components to a formula to how a team could actually win some games.
Yeah, I mean, I just, like I said, I saw that win total and I was like, man, I think it was one of those times where, we confused the fantasy and the real life a little bit, because you look at it for fantasy and you're like, this team is messy. It's confusing. There's a lot of ambiguousness in this offense, but I guess in real life they should be a solid football team still. It's not like it's a bad team. They have, like you said, good quarterback play. 8.5 sounds about right. I don't know how confident I am in going over. It very much does feel, and this is probably the cop-out answer, but it feels very much like this is an 8 to 9 win team. Yeah, like that feels like this is a line that I would be staying away from. But let's look at the ADPs, because as I mentioned, there's a lot of confusing things about this roster. The one thing that's not confusing is Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert, top 25 pick. QB 11. We've seen a fall in ADP for Justin Herbert this offseason. I think because most people saw the weapons kind of disappear in Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Austin Eckler, Gerald Everett, and then you have the rumors of the run first, run heavy type of offense. But you have Lad McConkey out of Georgia. He's the next guy on this list. Wide receiver 30, Joshua Palmer, wide receiver 60, Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins, QJ, Quentin Johnston, Kamani Vidal, and Brendan Rice. So a lot of I guess just uncertainty. I want to break this discussion up into two parts: the wide receivers and the running back. We don't have to talk too much about Justin Herbert. I guess we'll touch on him first before we get into those discussions. Are you buying the dip on Justin Herbert? Do you think that the dip is warranted with Justin Herbert? As I mentioned, QB 11 right now. Is there 10 quarterbacks in Dynasty you would rather have?
No, and I think we touched on it before. I'm a Justin Herbert guy. I think that he's getting the raw deal right now from the fantasy community. And as far as buying a dip, I think this is the perfect time to buy the dip. The guys had plantar fasciitis, and the guys already having questions about how the offense will be ran. So I would go out and try to acquire Justin Herbert if I were a team.
I'll play the game very quickly. The guys above Justin Herbert right now: Herbert or Daniels?
Herbert.
Herbert or Jordan Love?
Jordan Love.
Herbert or Anthony Richardson?
Anthony Richardson.
Joe Burrow?
Joe Burrow.
Caleb Williams and Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, those guys all above. Okay.
Yeah.
So there's a small dip. I mean, you might be able to, have him as high as QB 9 or something like that. He's QB 11.
Yeah.
But I think that there's an argument that, I said that the Broncos could potentially be drafting, a Teteroa McMillan, a Luther Burden. Say next year the Chargers land one of those top guys, Teteroa or Luther. Are we all of a sudden looking at this offense like, okay, they have McMillan, Lad McConkey, maybe they get a running back of the future. Next year's running back class is very strong. They get the running back of the future in Ollie Gordon. And then we're like, damn, this Chargers offense is actually kind of loaded. Are we then wishing we bought the dip on Herbert?
Man, I think that's going to be proven right within the first half of the season. Within the first half of the season, people who trade away Herbert for pennies on the dollar are going to be like, damn, why did I do that?
Yeah.
I
traded Herbert this offseason, but I traded him for Lamar.
Yeah. To trade him for a guy that could, get it done. So, yeah.
But, all right, let's talk about the wide receivers and the running backs. The wide receivers, you have Lad McConkey, Joshua Palmer, Brendan Rice, Quentin Johnston, DJ Shark, all of these guys. The rumors that we've heard circling throughout the preseason is that in 3 wide receiver sets, the offense is going to be DJ Shark, Joshua Palmer, and Lad McConkey. We do not hear Quentin Johnston in that. We do not hear Brendan Rice in that. We do not hear really anything. Do you believe that is going to be the offense that they roll out there? And then if that is the offense, who should we be targeting here? I mean, you have Lad McConkey as the clear-cut number 1 from an ADP perspective. Is that the guy that we just confidently are willing to draft?
Have to. The only 2 guys I want out of all those guys really, Lad McConkey and Josh Palmer.
Yeah. What is the outlook for a guy like Palmer look like to you?
I think it's still a blank canvas. I don't think we've seen enough from Palmer to know exactly what he's going to give us, but I think we've seen enough to warrant a chance to go out there and see. Like, I'm not even cutting off the possibility for him being a top receiver on the team. I just think he needs to go out there and just have that opportunity and see what they get out of him. But there's certain guys who I'm just writing off immediately. I'm immediately writing off QJ. I'm immediately writing off Brendan Rice. I think that was a Nepo pick. That's just like where I'm at with that.
I just think, look, DJ Shark was on waiver wires in a lot of our leagues. We play in very deep dynasty leagues, so if people don't know that, we play in leagues with 40-man rosters, so our waiver wires are barren. I picked up Shark this offseason in a lot of them when he signed with the Chargers, just because I knew that this wide receiver room was basically a blank canvas, like you said. Sounds like he might be the starting X wide receiver outside. If he's on your waiver wires in deep leagues, worth the dart throw, I think, maybe, just because we don't know who could be the number 1 out there. Shark could be a big play guy, but I do agree with you. I mean, McConkey's the guy you want. He's going to play in the slot. He's going to be that. I don't want to say he's going to be Keenan Allen, but he's going to play a Keenan Allen type role in this offense where he's going to be hyper targeted and he's going to play close to the line of scrimmage and kind of be the safety valve for a guy like Justin Herbert. Joshua Palmer, kind of a big play, take the top off the defense, but I think he has a little bit more to his game like that. I think Palmer, he could give you wide receiver 3 numbers this year. A guy who finishes top 36. He's giving you those wide receiver 3 weeks, some spike wide receiver 2 weeks when he catches the big play touchdown from Herbert. I think that's kind of the outlook. Other than that, though, like I agree from a dynasty perspective, I'm only investing in Palmer at a cheap rate and McConkey. And McConkey's the long-term play for me. Now, the running back room, we have had constant hype about Kamani Vidal all offseason. And it seems like that's been tempered a little bit because there's been rumors about Kamani maybe not even making the 53-man roster. You've had J.K. Dobbins, with sound bites saying that just give me the opportunity and I'm going to show you exactly why, I've been J.K. Dobbins over the last couple of years. You have got them saying that Gus Edwards is going to be the lead back in this offense. What are we making of the backfield? We know that they want to run the football. So to be honest, if we find the guy, there's probably going to be some value for our fantasy football teams. There's going to be some fantasy football points there, but how do we decipher that? Who is the guy here and how should we be looking at this backfield?
If you are one of the many fantasy football players that have fell for the Kamani Vidal scam, may God have mercy on your soul. This team was never going to give Kamani Vidal the keys to the castle. You were talking about Greg Roman here. Greg Roman coached J.K. Dobbins. Greg Roman coached Gus Edwards. Jim Harbaugh. He's a running back guy as well. And Greg Roman is very respected in that regard. And he picked 2 guys from his former team to bring over. Kamani Vidal was not one of those guys. So even if Kamani Vidal makes the team, he's going to have to wait until Gus gets hurt. He's going to have to wait till JK gets hurt before he gets an opportunity. And because it's Jim Harbaugh and with Greg Roman, you have to still worry about them going out and acquiring a guy to put that guy in front of Kamani Vidal. So that's the thing. So many people have tried to run the Kamani Vidal scam this offseason. Guys have tried to make me give them a second for Kamani Vidal. It's been ridiculous. So I think it's going to go Gus, JK, and it's going to be some kind of timeshare, and then to one of them gets injured, that's going to go.
JK is quite more affordable, I think. Let me pull that back up, but I want to say that JK is they're actually right about the same. Edwards and JK. So because they are about the exact same cost, if you have to make the bet on the one guy, it sounded like you were going to go Gus, yeah?
Yes, to be the starter, yes. But I actually think JK has more upside.
I do think JK has more upside as well. So I think if I have to, keep the keyword, if I have to invest in one of these guys,
yeah,
I think it's JK for me.
Yeah.
So
especially for the price, yes.
So, all right, man. Well, that is the Chargers. Let's move on to the Kansas City Chiefs. Oh, and should I say Super Bowl champions? Dynasty literally forming in front of our eyes because it seems like Patrick Mahomes just lives in the Super Bowl. Sorry, that was probably a lot of glazing right there. 11-6 was the record last year. Major free agent additions this offseason. Hollywood Brown, Clyde Edwards-Helaire comes back. He's not really a major free agent addition. And then they also bring in Carson Wentz because why not as the backup quarterback? And then you draft first-round speedster Xavier Worthy. The rich get richer. You thought last year with the despicable wide receiver room that Patrick Mahomes was handed that they couldn't do it, and they went out and did it, and now they add Hollywood Brown to a Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy wide receiver room. Yeah, the rich get richer, man. 11.5 wins. Over or under?
11.5 wins. Over or under?
I'm going to make it quick and easy for me. They're over. This is a 13-win football team.
I'm trying to think of arguments for why I should have some argument against it, but over. Just make that quick and easy.
They should win 13 games. I think they will. As long as everybody's healthy, the main pieces are healthy, they should win 13 games. But we don't really need to talk about why the Chiefs are good and why they're going to win a lot of football games. But what we do need to talk about is the ADPs of these players for your Dynasty Fantasy Football rosters. Yeah. Now, the undisputed number 1 pick in Superflex, Patrick Mahomes, I think deservingly so, QB1. But after him, you have Isiah Pacheco, all the way up to running back 11 this year. He saw a major increase in ADP. He is a top 60 pick, a top 12 running back. People expect him to be a running back 1. Then you have Xavier Worthy, Rashee Rice, Travis Kelce, and Hollywood Brown. So there is 3 conversations to have here. One of them is a quick conversation. The other maybe a little bit too more expansive. The first one is Isiah Pacheco. As I mentioned, people are viewing as a running back one. You and I, long time ago, had the Isiah Pacheco argument. You were Team Pacheco. I was not.
Right.
How do you feel about Pacheco being a top 12 guy these days? Do you think that is the way that we should be looking at him?
No, not anymore.
Interesting.
And
Why?
I think we talked about it on last week's video too. He's in that group of running backs where it's just like, you're good, you're solid, and you're in this spot now. But once a dynamic running back shows up to the scene, you're probably going to lose your job. And that threat can come from anywhere. That threat could come from a guy like Steele, like just randomly disappears, or just because Pacheco himself.
You like Carson Steele? The kid's a fullback, man.
Look, man. Look. Let's just keep this in perspective here, okay? Okay. How about this? Deneric Prince, okay? Deneric Prince. My whole point.
I think he's a bum as well, but whatever. I hear you. I'll hear the conversation.
The key point I'm trying to make is that Pacheco got into his position being one of those kind of guys, like just also ran, and then But when you acquire that position, being one of those guys, you can also lose your position to one of those guys. And Pacheco is solid, but in the NFL, solid does not help you keep your job. So with that said, no, I don't see him as being ranked that high. Not anymore.
So this is, for you, this is a sell high window on Isiah Pacheco.
Yes.
Just curious, based off of the sell high, where are you tearing down? Because if you sell high, you're probably wanting to tear down at the running back position, correct?
Yes.
Are you tearing down? I mean, I know you love DeAndre Swift this year. Are you tearing down into the DeAndre Swift tier, the David Montgomerys of the world? Do you feel like Montgomery and Pacheco are similar plays?
I feel like Montgomery and Pacheco are similar plays. I don't feel like DeAndre Swift, Pacheco, and Montgomery are similar. I think Swift should be on a whole higher tier, not because he's a Bears, because how I know he's going to get used in that offense.
You think like a guy like Josh Jacobs, like you're tearing down from Pacheco to Jacobs, you're tearing down from Pacheco to Swift to Monty. That's what you're doing?
Yeah.
Fair enough. I think the only argument that you would have would be that probably aside from the Lions, those other players might not have the 50-point weeks that the Kansas City Chiefs can have, where Pacheco runs for 2 touchdowns and they're grinding out the clock for a half of football. You know what I mean? So yeah. I don't know. I like Pacheco. I agree with you though. This might be the highest his value gets. I can't imagine him cracking that top 10. And if he does, it's probably because of injury, maybe because Saquon got hurt and he's 27 and that's why he cracks it. But this 2025, I'm going to say it now. And this, again, we talk about the receipts. This could be the receipt. I'm saying it now. I think this 2025 class at the running back position, I think is going to do damage to what we know about the running back landscape. I think it's going to do damage. Like, there's going to be guys that we're investing in. If you have a guy that you are somewhat on the fence about going into next offseason, sell him at the beginning of the offseason. Let the 2025 class come in and do damage to the running back landscape and buy your running backs back in the fall, because this class is going to hurt a lot of running backs. I think when you look at guys like Pacheco, could be one of them. Pacheco, Javonte, Rashad White, guys like Derrick Henry, Ramondre Stevenson, Tony Pollard, Zamir White, like Najee Harris, Joe Mixon, like Saquon Barkley even. Like, you have Kyron Williams. I mean, Kyron Williams has Blake Corum back here behind him right now, but like, you get what I'm saying. There's a bunch of running backs that they could be on the fence. They've been all right, but then you insert this class of running backs that I'm trying not to hype it up too much. When I tell you there is some elite running back prospects, there is some elite running back prospects in this class. I would not be shocked if in our rookie drafts, in those top 12 picks in the first round, I would not be surprised if we see 3 or 4 of those picks be running back. And that's kind of abnormal for, super flex leagues, especially when we target the running back. I mean, we target the wide receiver and the quarterback so heavy. I think you're going to have a lot of running backs. Now, that being said, I'll move us on over to the second conversation that I want to have here, and that's more so just the wide receivers. You have Rashee Rice, you have Xavier Worthy, you have Hollywood Brown. I think we kind of all understand that Hollywood Brown is more so a 1-year rental for them. He got that 1-year contract, kind of a prove-it deal for Hollywood, but also he gets to come in. They also signed him when they were thinking there might be a Rashee Rice suspension. Sounds like there might not be one in 2024 for Rashee. When it comes down to those younger guys, Rashee and Xavier Worthy has the draft capital. He has the analytical profile. Rashee has some NFL production. How are you viewing those two players, and who do you think ends up being the long-term number one here for Patrick Mahomes?
I feel like if Rashee could just get past his legal problem, it's going to be him. I feel like Xavier is a specialist. I feel like he's a specialist. Big play, deep threat. He's going to be a guy, but he's going to excel in one. I think Rashee affects all levels of the field for Patrick Mahomes. But the legal stuff, man, and that's without even getting into the whole idea of even if he gets past this one, is he going to screw up again? Because he screwed up twice this offseason. The second one just kind of got swept under the rug, but
well, yeah, he was lucky with that second one. It kind of just dissolved.
Yeah, so for now, Rashee Rice.
I mean, looking at the ADP, it's ADP of 71 to ADP of 72. Wide receiver 28, wide receiver 29. These guys are back to back, so people don't know. You're making the bet on Rashee. I think I lean Worthy. I think he's a little bit more dynamic as a playmaker. He has the draft capital. He has speed that we've never seen before. I guess because of that, I bet him because I think the ceiling might be higher than what a Rashee could be, but I understand if you feel like Rashee's floor could be higher. Now, there was a point in this offseason when that gap was not one spot of ADP. They were not back-to-back. There was a point in this offseason where you could get Rashee 3-4 rounds cheaper than Xavier Worthy. And at that point, if you were investing in Rashee Rice, you made the correct investment because now we're talking about two guys back-to-back. I made some Rashee Rice investments this offseason. Is that why you were smiling?
Yeah, because I was actually looking at Rashee Rice as we were speaking because I think I acquired Rashee Rice for Christian Kirk. So Christian Kirk, I don't think that was that bad. I acquired it for Christian Kirk. So
Kirk's fine. In a dynasty, you probably want Rashee.
Yeah.
I'm trying to, let me find it real quick because I want to see what I acquired Rashee for. It kind of felt like I stole him, to be honest. I got Rashee Rice for Evan Engram in a 3rd round pick.
Yes,
in a tight end premium. People were, I think the group chat in that league, you know how Sleeper, you have the group chat that you can speak in the league chat. I think people were talking about Evan Engram finishing as the tight end 2 and yada, yada, yada. And I said, let me send out some offers while people are talking about him, just so people, fresh on the mind. Got some Rashee Rice. I felt like that was a steal. I also sold Rashee Rice in a league, though, this offseason. I didn't just buy. I sold him. I got a 1st-round pick. Actually, I sold Rashee Rice and a 1st-round pick, and I got DJ Moore and Derrick Henry. So I made that move in a league, more of a contending move. But that being said, I think if you have to pick between the two, it is pick your flavor, choose your flavor. But I think both of those guys, these are the number 2 or the top 2 receivers for the Chiefs moving forward. These guys are going to be the guys for them. And it looks like they found some pretty good guys. Now, the last conversation before we get out of here, Travis Kelce. You saw the ADP has Travis Kelce as tight end 8. This is a guy who has been so good for fantasy football for so long. I mean, we're talking about tight end 1 after tight end 1 after tight end 1 finish from Travis Kelce.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like the wheels have fallen off. I mean, last year from a fantasy points per game perspective, he was still the number 1 tight end in fantasy. He didn't finish as the tight end 1 because he didn't play in every game all season, but from a points per game standpoint, he was the number 1 guy. Do you believe that 1, Travis Kelce still has some meat left on the bone? And 2, do you believe that Travis Kelce is a player that we can still draft confidently in startup drafts? Or are you, at this point, there's enough young guys that you're just going to take the younger guy over Kelce?
We're talking about a startup?
Yeah, second part of the question. The first part of the question, I guess, if you have Kelce on your team, are you confident riding it into the sunset?
Yeah, because I think he's just like Tony Gonzalez. He's going to probably be decent until he actually retires.
Just going to keep giving you double digits at the tight end position every year.
Yeah. I don't think, and we haven't seen any signs of him slowing down either. People are just looking at his age and yeah, okay, I'm out. But I think he still got it.
But in the startups, you're talking about him as tight end 8. Let me just read you the list of the guys there. Yeah. You have guys above him. And I will just play the game of those guys and we'll get out of here. Okay. Sam Laporta in a startup draft. Sam Laporta or Kelce?
Next question. I think we already know which way I will lean on that.
Trey McBride.
I'm not a Trey McBride fan like everybody else, but I go McBride.
Kincaid, yeah. Bowers.
I'm going Bowers.
Kyle Pitts.
That's why I kind of draw the line. I'm going Kelce right there.
Mark Andrews or Kelce moving forward.
Wait a minute, is Kyle Pitts above Mark Andrews?
Yes.
I'm going Mark Andrews. Pitts shouldn't be where he is.
I think it's the age. Kyle Pitts still 23 years old. He's younger. He's the same age as Sam Laporta, bro. And he's been in the NFL for like 5 fucking years.
Yeah, and hasn't lived up to his hype.
TJ Hawkinson or Kelce moving forward.
Kelce.
And then you have Kelce there. So it sounds like in a startup, you do prefer some of the younger guys. I mean, you're not taking any of the guys after him, right? Like Kelce versus Kittle, you're still taking Kelce over Kittle?
Yeah.
Kelce versus Ferguson and Engram, Evan Engram and Jake Ferguson. Yeah, I figured. Yeah. So I think the only argument you have there is, I mean, it sounds like for you, Kyle Pitts is the only argument for you.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe it is, that time where in startup drafts, we are just preferring to take the younger guys over Kelce.
Yeah.
Even if Kelce outproduces them for a year or two.
Yeah, you have to, because it's just a numbers game. Eventually, guys going to retire. So I mean,
Fair enough. Well, there you have it, man. That is the AFC West, talking about the Broncos, the Raiders, the Chargers, and the Chiefs. Very, I think, fun division for the most part for fantasy football. Lots of question, lots of ambiguousness to this division. Some high-end talent in this division, some exciting youth. I think there's a lot of good stuff about this division for fantasy football. That being said, if you guys did enjoy this divisional breakdown, you want to watch some of the other ones, we've done all of the other divisions up to this point. The only one we have not covered that will be coming out in a few days is the NFC West. So your favorite team, your division, your team's division is probably already covered. Go watch that. If you enjoyed today's video, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Got a goal of 3,000 subscribers by week 1. We are down to the wire. Still trying to make that happen. Help us out. Hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. Join the Discord. It's free, linked in the description. And War, where can they find you at?
You can find us over on Crimson Mass Pro Wrestling, where we talk about AEW and WWE. We are Crimson Mass Pro Wrestling with an attitude.
Hell yeah, man. So there you guys have it. As I said, do the YouTube stuff, like, subscribe, comment. We'll see you on the next video. But until then, peace out.